You're listening to Retail Disrupted, a podcast that explores the latest industry developments and the trends that will shape how we shop in the future. I'm your host, Natalie Berg. Today's episode is brought to you by Whistl. Whistl is one of the UK's leading logistics providers, offering scalable and tailored fulfillment solutions for e-commerce retailers and brands. From warehousing to delivery, every solution is built around the needs of their customers to help them scale with confidence. Joining me on the show today is James Hayes, who is Whistl Fulfillment's Director of Business Development. Named one of Scurri's top 50 e-commerce and shipping influencers, James brings extensive experience in logistics and technology. Previously, he founded Parcel Station, exiting in 2018 to drive growth at Whistl. He specializes in helping brands scale through innovative fulfillment strategies and optimizing final mile delivery for a superior customer experience. A frequent speaker at industry events, podcasts, and webinars, James shares expert insights on building 3PL partnerships to fuel business growth and delight customers. James, it's so great to have you here. We are going to be diving into the world of fulfillment. Fulfillment, of course, is the engine that drives e-commerce, so lots to discuss. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role at Whistl?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on this podcast. So I work in the part of e-commerce that not many people post about on LinkedIn, or not enough. The operations, logistics, the engine room. I help brands grow without chaos, and partnering with them as they scale makes sure that the back end can keep up with the front end. I've been in logistics since 1997. After falling out of high school with a thick ear and a bloody nose. And I'm still in logistics after all these years. At Whistl for the last 8 years. And previous to that, I ran my own parcel business, which led me on the journey to meeting Nick at Whistl and encouraging me to join where I am now, which has been a great choice for the last 8 years.
Yeah, so you've been in fulfillment for a long time, and you're the perfect person to ask about the changes that we've seen, because the growth of online shopping, if we just look at the past decade alone, I mean, it's exploded. And if you look at the e-commerce penetration rate here in the UK, it's currently at 27%. That's pretty high by global standards. It's more than doubled in the past decade. And of course, that's due to a whole host of reasons. Better connectivity. We had the pandemic, which created a whole lot of new habits. We've seen the rise of social commerce. Payments are getting easier. Delivery is getting better. So, James, tell us about your observations. Just how transformative has the past decade been for you at Whistl?
Incredibly, after being sort of a founder to become employee, that took a little bit of adjusting. And then that was in 2018. And then soon after that, we went into crazy world of COVID. And then just for extra fun, we followed that up with Brexit. We had a few years of real challenge and change and volatility, which kept us on our toes, having to pivot constantly with the COVID challenges, but then into Brexit. The legislative changes were phenomenal, and trying to keep our 2,500 merchants up to speed with what they needed to do was quite a journey. It's not just Whistl; it's all of the merchants that we support that ship domestically and internationally, and even to the Channel Islands and Northern Ireland. That became something that people needed to consider and improve their operating procedures to allow product to go to Channel Islands and Northern Ireland, which still causes pain today.
Yeah. And then, of course, we had the cost of living crisis, and now we've got the geopolitical instability. And so I agree, it is a challenging time for retailers. And it's probably good to address the doom and gloom early on in our conversation before we move on to more positives. But yeah, I guess it's, for retailers, you're trying to keep up with ever evolving customer expectations. And we'll come on to that in a little bit. But also, you're trying to navigate all this uncertainty that's plaguing the market right now. And tariffs is obviously a big one. So I'd love to know, James, what are you hearing from retailers? How are they coping with all of this volatility?
Being able to pivot quickly is the key. If you need to pivot pricing, if you need to pivot data, new bits of information. Can your tech stack support that quick change that's needed when doing international cross-border, bringing stock in and then obviously sending it out? Not reacting too quickly, because things change very quickly, as we can see.
Yeah. Yeah. So being able to react to changes, but also, I guess, anticipating changes as well. And that's
That's it.
obviously very challenging in the current market.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
o- when we talk about e-commerce, the front end is very visible. We see the ads, the storefront, the packaging. What we talk less about, and you alluded to this in your intro, we talk less about what happens behind the scenes, all the steps to get that product from the warehouse to the customer in the most seamless, most reliable way. So, to what extent would you say logistics is kind of the unsung hero of e-commerce?
It 100% is, and it's the most often undervalued piece of your stack as a brand. Acquisition is glamorized, socials, Instagram, how the website looks and feels, but customers don't stay for those ads. They stay because what they bought arrived undamaged and easy to return and was a nice experience. That's why they stay. It's that first interaction physically that is so significant. And get that wrong, that memory lasts so much longer than an ad that didn't land. The invisible engine room of a warehouse is so important. And those brands that you see that are flying, that are succeeding, absolutely use their warehouse or their fulfillment partner as not a cost center, but a customer retention tool, a tool to acquire new customers. There's some real smart stuff you can do that turns that warehouse into something that's not that sexy, into something that's actually quite sexy.
Yeah, I think you're so right because we remember as consumers, we remember the bad experiences, right? We don't really
Yeah.
think about the times that products just turn up as they're supposed to because that's just what we expect. But the when they don't turn up or when things go wrong, that stays with us. And the delivery experience is an extension of their brand, isn't it? It's the trust and
Mm.
the service that they're promising the customer. So I'd love to just dive into the delivery experience a little bit more. The consumer appetite for speed shows no sign of abating. So it's putting a lot of pressure on retailers to get things to the customer as quickly as possible. And I'd love to get your perspective on this. How are customer expectations around delivery shifting and how can retailers keep up?
You're right. They are shifting the sort of on demand existence that we have. I think it comes down to almost your social media interactions. You know, you're getting hit with 6-second blasts of content, and then psychologically, you just went wanting things immediately. Brands are trying to do quick and trying to do fast, and you can do same day delivery, you can do next day delivery, you can do eco delivery, but it all comes at a price. More and more brands are putting that price onto the consumer, which is right. Delivery isn't free. Consumers don't realize that, or don't see that, so they don't care. You've got large enterprises like Tesco, F&F, who we are the fulfillment partner for, charging for delivery from day one. And that's to mirror what everyone else is doing next, charge for delivery. There's always a play-off. When you're charging for delivery, do you want to include free? At what point does that become free? Is it £50, £100, number of units? For every brand, it's different because we're all working on different margins. Everyone's got different cost bases. So just copying what someone else does doesn't always work. The ones that succeed are the ones that are asking what the customers actually want, not guessing. So doing surveys, asking for feedback from consumers. What is it they actually want rather than assuming they want free and next day? Because that might not be as important for them as value and experience.
Yeah, because it's not just fast and free delivery. It also, as we said, it has to be reliable as well. And I mean, there's more to say around this. And I guess just briefly, if we kind of take this a step further and discuss returns, returns, of course, is a perennial challenge for retailers, but it's also complicated because sometimes the biggest returners are also your best customers. So
Mm,
there's this constant debate, do you make returns easy and frictionless to keep your customers happy and loyal? Or do you actually add a little bit of friction in to your point about charging for delivery? Do you charge for returns to try to change behaviors? So I'd love to just get your view on returns. Is this just part and parcel of 21st century life? And
oh,
that pun was totally intended, by the
100%.
way.
100%. Returns are here to stay. And returns can be looked in a different way. I'll touch on that in a second. But most of our brands charge for returns, unless of course, if it's there's a problem with the product, or it turned up late and they don't want it anymore. If there's a reasonable reason to send it back with no charge, then they do so. And they'll use our tools to validate the return reasons, and within the tech, on the fly, charge or not charge for that return based on the reason for return. So having the optionality when that consumer is on the portal to return the product is key, because you don't want to have a charge only return solution when it's something they've not asked for, you've sent the wrong product. So being able to have options is important, but yet returns are not going anywhere. And then the key is just to try and keep the cost down for our brand partners, making sure that operationally we're as efficient as possible, so that unit cost to receive, inspect, check, fragrance test if it's fashion, and make sure all the parts have been returned if it's electrical, or all the components with us. Trying to do that as seamless and quickly as possible to keep that unit cost down, and then working with them to see how can we get new value and resale value out of that return product. Partnering with a really interesting business who are encouraging returns to brands where, let's say I've got an old football shirt that I've had for a while, I don't need it anymore. I'll sell it back to the club through this tool. And then I, as the 3PL partner, will receive that product, rework it, get it in a sellable state so that the brand can resell it. But the encouraging part for the consumer is I'll get a voucher to buy a new shirt, a discount code to buy a new shirt, so I can trade my old one in for a new one at a cheap price. There's different ways
Oh,
of
that's
thinking with
interesting.
returns, and again, using it as a vehicle to attract new customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I think, nobody wants a return. The customer doesn't want to make the return. The retailer doesn't want to process it. It's costly. It's not great for the environment. There's all kinds of reasons why we have collectively have an incentive to reduce the rate of returns. James, let's talk a little bit more about how you're working with brands. So, a lot of small businesses and startups will hold stock in house I presume, until it just gets to be too much, when volumes start to ramp up and they need to outsource. And that's when they come to you for support. So, can you give us a flavor of a real life 3PL partnership in action, and why they're choosing you over your competitors?
Culture fit's important in a 3PL decision. Having a shiny warehouse is all great, and automation, it's important, and a tech WMS that's functional and scalable, they're a given. We've got all those. We're winning consistently. Many reasons, but culture is one. And we've got to really embrace that we're taking on, especially for founder led businesses, we're taking on their baby, right? And that nervousness to give away control can be real. And we've got empathy throughout the business, from our leadership team right down to the warehouse team, of the important role that we play as an extension to that brand. We're not just a service provider. It has to be a real partnership where we take on the logo as our own. And that's working with founder-led businesses. I'm talking to one at the moment, a fashion brand who have scaled phenomenally, getting close to 20 million in sales per year, originally from a garage, now from a warehouse, and they're overwhelmed with it, and they don't know what to do. But it's the standard story. The founders are super at nailing products, nailing trends, hitting the market at the right time with the right product, and selling a lot of it. And then the back office just starts to fall apart and crumble. So we will be very much the advisor, the consultant, and bringing expertise to guide them through tidying up their operation to make it a 3PL ready operation, relieving them of the headache and the stress of managing staff that don't turn up every day in the warehouse, and deciding which of the office and which of the leadership team are we going to have to sacrifice today to go into the office. All of that just destroys your growth and your stability. A brand can come to Whistl and start from small and grow to huge, or come in large and go larger. So we can support
Okay.
a large market, almost sort of incubator to enterprise.
And how do you help these brands, especially I guess the startups, as you say, it's their baby. How do you help them alleviate those fears, especially when it comes to that loss of control?
We've got real solid partnerships where we're helping reduce the costs for our partner brands, like Yoto, for example. We realize that delivery spend was quite high, and thought there's possibly ways to support with this. We're killing our own revenue in this activity, but it's helping the brand and the longevity of the partnership, and it helps secure a long-term contract renewal. There was multiple products going out in multiple packages, and we just saw an opportunity to reduce the number of packages going out and getting more product into the original package. And just by simple changes and lots of testing, we cut their spend by like 33% on a particular large letter service. And then on returns, especially when we're the contact center for this brand and we're receiving the tickets and the calls to complain or ask questions, we noticed the trend for a footwear brand. There was a significant amount of returns for a period of 2 weeks on a handful of SKUs. So there was clearly a problem with production on these SKUs. So we highlighted it to the brand, did the inspections, and found that there was some QC issues on this product. But we was missed because it was an existing supplier. They've already gone through the QC checks, so we were assuming the product was fine.
Oh, that's
But yeah,
interesting.
quickly reacting to, hold on, there's some noise coming here, which is unusual. Let's double tap into it and see why.
With social media today, products can go viral very quickly. And when there is this sudden, unexpected spike in demand, what impact does this have on the
Got
warehouse
it.
and carriers?
That's a great question. And one I can speak to of with experience. So we partnered back in September with Maybe, Maebe, which is Molly May's fashion brand.
Mhm.
And I've never seen something go as viral as when Molly puts a post out about a new product. And we walk in from the weekend expecting, let's say, 500 orders, and we walk into nearly 10,000 because the hit, and it just landed, and they sold everything out. The entire website was cleared out. Luckily, we created some buffer stock, so we had some backup. But the impact on the floor is, how do you go from handfuls of orders to thousands and thousands of orders with the same team?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's difficult if you're running your own operation. Almost impossible. This other brand that I'm talking to, the fashion one, their weekend orders, they're still shipping them on the Friday because they can't keep up with it. So that's killing them on reviews. Their touch pilot's down in the 2 world, not
Why is
near
shipping on
5,
Friday bad?
because the orders were taken at the weekend previously, and they're still trying to get through the
Oh, I
order.
see. Okay. Oh,
So
wow.
they get a spike because an Instagram ad lands more than they expected it to, and they shift thousands of units, but they're only capable of doing 300 to 500 a day. So if they do a 5,000 day, it can take them up to 10 days to catch up.
Wow. And you've got to manage those customer expectations. And we talked
Absolutely.
earlier about speed, and
Yeah,
I don't know at what point do you kind of, no one wants to turn their website off, right? So
exactly. So when you're running your own operation and you get these spikes, it's really difficult to quickly get warehouse team in that know what they're doing without having any training. Whereas we try and flatline our spikes and put in brands that are consistent, brands with different types of product sets that land different times of the year. So yeah, being able to pivot quickly is a 3PL's dream.
yeah,
Do it
yeah.
with multiple warehouses in the same sort of area. So we can even, when we do it, vehicles and buses that we move staff to the different warehouses as the volume is moving around for different brands.
Yeah. And I guess related to that, we are now just over halfway through the year. And the next thing on everyone's mind is peak. The Christmas creep, as I know it's often referred to, it's real. Last year, I saw some major UK retailers launching Black Friday on Halloween on October 31st.
Yeah.
So, what advice do you have for retailers as we move into the most critical trading period?
Selfishly, start early and finish late. If you're running your own warehouse, again, try and do the same. But it all depends on what you're selling and who you're competing against. That you might not be able to do that because your competitors are hitting hard on Black Friday with better deals than you want to do or can do. So it's a balance. Do your best not to kill your operation, but at the same time, you want a big bumper season. So be honest with the consumers at the point of checkout. We're giving you these deals. The offset is you're not getting it tomorrow. You might not get it in day 3. You'll get it by day X, hopefully. or give a window. So you set your expectation early. Don't start overpromising at Black Friday, because it can really come back to bite you.
Yeah,
Um,
overpromising and underdelivering is it's not a good
yeah,
recipe.
no, it's not. And plan early. We will bring in heads weeks before it, because you've got to go through a period of training. You do need to bring in agency for spikes like that at times. And anybody that recruits agency knows how hard it is, because you'll bring in 10 on the first day and maybe only 5 or 3 will turn up for day 2. So you've got to go through a several week period to get to a point of a stable team before peak, the part-time resource. So plan early and trying to protect your operation. Or try and be smart. If you're running your own operation, can you outsource a part of it without costing too much money? So a particular brand is going to do this with us. They've got SKUs that don't sell with anything else. It's almost it's a 1 unit per order. So just bring all those containers to us, relieve your operation of some volume, of some easy wins, and then focus on volume that you can manage and outsource some of it. You don't have to give everything away.
James, we can't go a day without talking about AI and the impact on retail. And I'd love to get your views on how you see AI impacting fulfillment in particular.
We're testing it and we're looking to see how it can improve our efficiencies and help our brands see into the future better. We're treading carefully, because there's a lot of horror stories about trusting it too much and it giving you inaccurate data, and that being more of a problem than the tool can create benefit for. But forecasting, I think, is one that's going to be really interesting, and we're playing around with this seriously. How AI can really help nail when you buy that product, when you manufacture it, at what point you bring it into the country, which countries you move it to first, rather than just hitting everyone with the same product across the globe if you're international. And there are tools that we're playing with that can absolutely do this. For those brands of ours that are not so good on their forecasting, and if we're all honest, it's about the only thing that's ever right is that the forecast is wrong. How can AI help us get closer to 100% forecast accuracy? I really think it's going to get us a lot closer than we are now. Because now it's Google Sheets, it's Excel, it's feel, it's gut, it's educated but not calculated.
James, what should brands be measuring when they calculate the real cost of fulfillment?
Really good question. And often they'll look at their warehouse cost, number of employees divided by the number of orders, and take the two biggest numbers. But often that'll give you a number that means the 3PL option might look more expensive. But to get all of your costs into your operation, you've got to think of founders' sweat equity. How much time are the leadership team spending babysitting the operation? How much time is lost with key colleagues that are office-based, having to go into the warehouse and support a period of growth or a period of spike? Returns, the cost of the person receiving the ticket to create the return, the cost of your finance, so credits. You paid Stripe 2 or 3% on the outbound, you're paying potentially more cost on return, refund, the cost of the carriage to receive it, the cost of the warehouse to unload the van, take the product out, inspect it, try and make it sellable again, the cost to load that product back onto the website, the cost to market that product again, the cost to ship that product again. The cost of returns is huge, and not just the refund and the courier rate. There's so much more to it. And it's the same with outbound. I see so many operations where the warehouse operatives are walking all over the place to get the things that they need. So they're losing minutes, they're losing hours, because everything they need is not at the packing bench. They're having to go to different places to get a different piece of packaging that they've realized they didn't need. All of those lost times due to inefficiencies are not calculated when you look at the cost per order of your operation. So I could talk for hours on this, and often do when I'm challenged with the question, you're more expensive than my operation. Well, perhaps at the high level, but let's start peeling the onion back and looking what else you've not considered. There's so many more layers to your operational cost and the cost per order.
Thank you for listening to Retail Disrupted. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the podcast, please leave a rating or review or share it with others. It really makes a difference.